Yo, what's up, everybody? I am in Florida. I'm near Fort Lauderdale, and I'm heading back to New York City tomorrow. But I wanted to make this video, and I apologize for not having made any videos over the last 2 days. It's just been a little bit complicated. I've been looking around here. It was a consideration of mine to maybe relocate out of New York and to move down to Florida. I don't know if that's happening anymore. Folks, I think I'm just a New Yorker. Like, and I get it. And if you people think like, New York sucks and it's it's terrible, and why would anyone want to live in a blue state, and why would anyone want to pay these taxes and the crime and the grime? I get it, and I'm not going to argue with you. I just think like all of us have roots, and our roots run deep, and we may not see them, but they're there. And I just think like I find it personally hard to move. Like some people, they love moving. They love changing their circumstances. It's exciting for them. And for me, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to leave New York. I'm just like, I don't know if I'm coming to Florida. Anyway, I want to talk. That's not the reason for this video. I just want you to know. I want to talk about the SVP Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, which was shut down. This was, and I'm gonna really, really try to control my anger and my frustration right now, because this was a situation that was allowed to happen because of basically a bank run. And nowadays, like, bank runs should just not happen. I mean, you should not discipline banks on the liability side of their balance sheet. If that's why we created the Fed. That's why we have, other banking institutions, FDIC and things like that. I mean, if you wanna discipline banks, you discipline banks on the asset side of the balance sheet. First of all, SVP, and I don't know the exact circumstances, but it just came out recently that it had 280 billion in assets, and it had 175 billion in deposits, reserves, basically. I mean, that totally is within compliance, based on regulatory, what the Fed deems to be regulatory necessity. So it wasn't a situation of insolvency, all right, where they didn't have enough assets. I mean, it was a bank run that was basically allowed to happen. So here's the point that gets me so angry and frustrated. Why do we have these regulatory institutions? And more importantly, why do we have these regulators? People like Powell, I don't know who's running the FDIC right now, but like, I remember a similar situation happened back in the financial crash in 2008, when Wachovia was shut down, liquidated, not because it was insolvent, and there was basically a bank run that Bernanke allowed to happen. And this is the entire, folks, do you understand? Let me say, and I'm really, really trying to hold back my anger here now. Really trying to hold back my anger. This was the exact reason that the Federal Reserve Act was created in 1913, to have an institution, because prior to that, you had private banks like J.P. Morgan and stuff like that used to, they used to form a consortium of other banks that would pony up the capital, because they knew these were, unique or fluctuating circumstances or emotional circumstances that need to have a backstop. So we transferred that. We created an institution. Congress created an institution in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, to preclude stuff like this from happening. And nowadays, we have these, fucking morons running these institutions that are allowing this to happen. Like, I'm going to say something right now. I was never one of these people who went along with all, like the crazy, what's his name, Ron Paul, and these others. What's his son's name? Whoever, who said we should end the Fed, right? Shift, people like that, end the Fed. Ron Paul and the other Paul, end the Fed. But now I think I'm one of them. I mean, you have a job which is defined, like Congress created you with these powers specifically to avoid situations like this. And yet, what do? You sit back and you do nothing, and you shut down a bank that is in compliance with the amount of the reserves to capital ratio, the reserve to asset ratio. They're not insolvent. They have assets. They have capital. I mean, like, what? Why do we have this institution now when the rules of how to govern these institutions are just like fucking thrown out the window or just ignored? Like, we got really... this is just for me saying this. I'm sorry. I try to be like an intelligent person. This is so fucking stupid and so bad. And people have been emailing me today like, Mike, is there a fear of you think there's a problem of contagion? First of all, the big banks like Chase, and Citi and Wells Fargo. I mean, Wells Fargo and Bank of America. They have enormous amounts of reserves, and their capital is many times higher than what is required by regulators. But basically all these banks do. I mean, that's the only way they can maintain as ongoing enterprises, is that they meet the requirements of the regulators. And all of their assets, here's a very important point. I want you all to understand this. All of their assets have to be government approved assets. There's only certain assets that they could own. Otherwise, you can't, like, they'll shut you down. You can't have your bank charter. So it's like, here's the thing. We're the government. We're saying, okay, you want to be a bank? We'll give you a bank charter. You got to have a certain amount of capital. You could only own these assets, okay? It's not like they're owning pork belly futures or something like that. You could only own these assets, all right? You need to have a certain ratio of reserves to deposits, okay? And so, like, they have no other choice but to comply with that, and yet you allow a bank run to happen. Like, if a bank is on the radar screen to be shut down because it doesn't have enough capital, it is out of compliance with the regulatory mandates, that's another thing. You do that. Okay, you do that. I got no problem with that. Like, if you don't have enough capital and you got all these assets, like, no, that you either shed the assets or raise more capital. That's the structure of it. But when you get some kind of bank run, which who knows, like anything could trigger a bank run. It's just like an emotional reaction. And then you have the Fed and everybody else, and especially the Fed. I have to blame the Fed. And this is another mark against this fucking Jerome Powell. The worst. Going to go down as the worst fucking Fed chairman ever. This motherfucker. I'm sorry. But like, to allow a bank run and then to shut down a bank based on something like that, where everything else was in compliance. Everything else was in compliance. And to throw the whole entire system into this like state of worry. I'm getting emails left and right. I'm like, Mike, you think this is going to be contagion? The market's already down. We got fucking, next week's going to be tax drain and April's going to be tax drain. And these guys are talking about raising interest rates. I mean, it's sickening. It's sickening. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. Anyway, I'm coming to you here from Florida. I'm going back to New York City tomorrow, and I just want to say again, I don't know, folks. I don't know. I just might be a New Yorker. As crazy as that sounds. And I know it does sound crazy. It sounds crazy even to me saying it. It sounds crazy. Like I've said, I think I've made videos saying like, I don't go to the opera. I don't go to Broadway. I don't go to I hardly ever go to museums. Sometimes I like to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, but that's very rare, every couple of years. It's not like every weekend or every other weekend. So like, I don't like cold weather. One of the things I have to say here this morning, I woke up and, I did like a 10-mile run. It was beautiful, 75 degrees. That's nice. But by the same token, I kind of miss that intense cold that I always talk to you guys about when I go out in the morning at 4 a.m. and it's like fucking 20 degrees and I'm running with my shirt off and everything like that. But I have to say it was nice to go run in the warm. Anyway, I'm really mad and I'm really pissed off. All right? I love all you guys. Have a great day. Bye.